Hello friends, my name is Ernest, and today I'll be reviewing Ready Player One by Ernest Cline. The last video I made was actually a TBR for the Booktubeathon, which is now over for the year 2016, so it would follow that probably the next video would be some kind of wrap-up or vlog or something like that, but I did really bad on the readathon, as I kind of expected, because I don't do well at these things, but I have really bad FOMO, so I try them anyways. I will wrap that up somehow soon, but I've also got this whole backlog of videos and reviews that I'm interested in still making, so that's why you're getting this video and not something else. Before all of this, I had an idea to do a series that would be a bit of a play on some things that I've done on this channel before, and it would basically be me picking up, reading, and reviewing books that had received a lot of hype, but that the hype is kind of over now. Just me being behind the times. I'm not hype-averse by any means. I think there was a time when I was younger when I was hype-averse because I thought that was cool, but for the most part the FOMO kind of takes on now, and if I hear people excitedly talking about a book, I will be curious, but because of time constraints, you can't read every hype book in the universe. There are times that you miss the boat on certain things, and this series would be me catching up and reading things after the fact. As I was developing this idea, I realized that I had the perfect place to start because I recently read Ready Player One by Ernest Cline. I buddy read this with Sylvia, whose channel I will link specifically because she's already done her review for this, and we ended up having a lot of the same feelings, except for I think I struggled a lot more with the beginning, so she just sped on right ahead of me. She finished way before I did, and I was still kind of struggling with the beginning, which we will get to. Ready Player One is set in the future in a society that has kind of fallen apart after the invention of this MMO virtual reality called the Oasis. The creator of the Oasis has passed away, and in his will he's left his vast riches and ownership of the Oasis to the person who can find an Easter egg within the system by following a series of clues. I will say that I was looking forward to buddy reading this, but I wasn't necessarily excited to read this book. For this one, I think the reason that I missed out on the first wave of hype is because I didn't think that the premise was very attractive to me. I mostly mentioned that now so that you know that my expectations when I was going into the story were pretty reasonable to low. I wasn't really expecting to get much out of it except for the enjoyment of buddy reading. Because my expectations were so low, and because the second half of the book was much better than the first half of the book, I rated this 3 out of 5 stars when I was finished reading it, and it wasn't until later and further reflection as I prepared to do this review that I realized that there were too many negative things that I didn't really kind of process and take into account, so it really ended up being somewhere between it was okay and I liked it on the Goodreads scale that I use, so I adjusted this to a 2.5 out of 5 stars. First, and as I mentioned, the beginning of the story was a struggle for me, and I think that was primarily because it was a giant info dump. It was exposition on top of exposition, and it seemed to extra bother me because I didn't really think that the story needed all of this exposition. It didn't need all of the intense setup that Cline provided when really it was a basic kind of scavenger hunt with this virtual reality element. It was on page 54 that after a big time struggle and in an effort to not DNF, I switched over to the audiobook. People kept telling me that the audiobook would help me kind of get past that and read in general, and I'm really glad that I listened because it did indeed help me. Overall, I don't think that this book did anything exceptionally bad, so I'm actually going to start with 3 positive things. Number 1, in the second half of the book, I think Cline did manage to cultivate this great atmosphere and spirit of adventure. Even though I pretty much knew where we were going in terms of outcome, I was still interested enough to find out how it all played out. Number 2, I think Wade is a pretty convincing, oblivious kind of character. He's the kind of character that you kind of want to slap upside the head because he makes decisions that you as a reader know aren't the best decisions, and he does get punished for them, but I don't know, it worked for him and his kind of personality, and it worked for me because in the end I still wanted Wade to win. Number 3, there were settings and elements of the Oasis that I thought were really interesting. I never felt bored when he was describing actual elements of the game and gameplay or places you could visit or portions of the clues that he was trying to figure out. That portion was entertaining to me. Those three positive things mean that there is a core of fun in this book tucked away like 75 pages in from the beginning, and I get why people lock into that core and think that this is a great fun novel, especially for lovers of 80s trivia and pop culture and nostalgia and video games and music and movies, and I get it. Now we're going to move on to the negative things that I found about this book, and I'm actually going to start with the ones that I can talk about in a non-spoilery way, so those of you who haven't read it yet can still listen if you are so inclined, and then I'll let you know when I'm going to get into spoilery territory in case you kind of want to duck out at that point. Number one, I've already mentioned that I felt that there was an overabundance of references in this book. It crossed the line for me where I thought it was too much, and I also thought that sometimes the references were speaking down to us instead of including us in on the joke. It felt a little bit condescending at points, which is difficult to explain in terms of references, but this book managed it in my opinion, and I didn't appreciate that either. Number two, the main antagonist in this book felt too maniacal to me. It's a shame too, because it's a corporation whose motivations I understand. They're interested in winning the riches and the ownership of the oasis for themselves, which is completely understandable in terms of motivation. However, the way they go about things, all of the interactions that they have with our main characters, the lengths that they're willing to go to achieve their ends, all of that stuff felt a little bit too ridiculous to me, and I was more likely to laugh at whatever that they were doing instead of feeling truly stressed out for our main characters. The main antagonist is so clearly the worst dude ever that I had no fear for the ending of the story. It could not have ended any other way. Number three, this whole story has this whole hashtag basic basis to it. I mean, it started off with this cliche geeky boy saving the day premise, and you just can't expect too much more of it than that. It just doesn't go anywhere else. The corporation is evil. The identified women, which I think there are two that we meet, I think, in the story, are love interests. Both of them are love interests. The geeky boys work their way up from the bottom and are smarter than literally everyone on the planet, etc. Number four, let's talk about the women in this story. It's the year 2044 and we have one leading female gamer, and her function in the story still ends up being love interest. As we learn more about the founders of the Oasis, we learn that the two founders, their relationship went sour over a girl. From here on out, the next few points are going to be all spoilers, so if you're not interested in listening to spoilers, this is your cue to go ahead and click away or click to the end. I'll put a link for you if that's what you want to do, but I'm warning you, spoilers are coming. Number five, and you knew this was coming probably, but there is another girl in the story, H, but we don't learn that until the end of the story. H pretends to be a boy within the Oasis. H is also a lesbian, so of the three women who are actually in the story, two are love interests and one is a lesbian. I don't like this premise that has women included in their story, either to be a love interest to the main male characters or like not interested in males at all. Either you're a lesbian or you're going to be the subject of the gaze and the interest of the main male character. That is such a cheap way to use women in your stories, and I could maybe appreciate the representation featuring a queer character, but we're getting to point 6, and that is that anytime you have representation that is a plot twist or a spoiler, I feel uncomfortable. I can't even openly talk about the fact that one of the main characters in this book is a black female lesbian because we don't know that until the final quarter of this book. I understand that that may not bother everyone, but damn, here is this minority, queer, interesting, funny, just amazing character that we don't really know exists, that we can't talk about, that we can't celebrate, that we can't say that this is a book with representation without ruining the plot of the story. Last I checked, they didn't even have this character listed in the upcoming movie as part of the cast for the upcoming movie because it would spoil it for people. Number 7, there were some really strange things done in terms of body image and beauty standards within this book as well. And I think it goes back to the fact that Cline did them lazily without any real eye towards the message of his story or his characters or that representation. Our main character Wade is fat at the beginning of the story. Then we have Artemis, whose avatar is plus size, but we find out that in real life she's trim and conventionally pretty. She does have a birthmark on one side of her face, which is her worry about her own appearance. And Wade, towards the end of the story, basically hops on a treadmill and voila, he loses weight. It's hard to really pinpoint these things because they're not bad in and of themselves, but they all left this really bad taste in my mouth, linking back to that whole basic premise and geek boy dream. Sure, you're overweight and your girlfriend is overweight, but you hop on a treadmill and you lose all the weight and psych, she's really slim anyways, and now you're all rich and happy. It's too simplistic when it comes to beauty standards and body types and that whole kind of thing. And if we're building to this kind of dream where the good guy wins and they become rich and they own the thing, the fact that we start fat and end skinny just does not give a message that I can support or that I enjoyed at all within the story. Finally, I hated that the whole Easter egg thing had no end game or reason. I mean, they reached the end of the game and they achieved what they wanted, but I was waiting for some kind of explanation as to why Halliday did the Easter egg thing in the first place, or if there was some bigger reasoning or some bigger anything to the whole idea of putting your riches and the ownership of this super important system up for grabs without any kind of protection. I was wanting there to be some kind of deeper wisdom that maybe we didn't see as a reader, but then would later be revealed as to why he did it this way in the first place, and there wasn't. And so I really did enjoy most of this after the 75-page mark, but looking back, I really do think that it's flawed, especially in its characters, its representation, and its message. I think Cline created some basic wish fulfillment, and because of that he abandoned a plot and some characters that I thought had potential but that never really lived up to that potential or fleshed out in any kind of way. I think he did just enough to make this not overtly offensive to most people, but unfortunately he didn't do enough for me to enjoy or call this a favorite by any measure. As I said, 2.5 out of 5 stars for me. Did this live up to the hype for me? No, not at all. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I will see you guys soon. But then we find out that in real life she is trim and pretty conventionally